Hello everyone, my name is Kamila Koronska. I'm a research officer at the University of Amsterdam. First of all, I would like to present you this poster, but also thank our partners who participated in this research. So that's Agency France Press and as well as University of Urbino. So here we have a poster where we try to explain to you the research that we did with Google search results. So our main question was, we're trying to figure out whether in a US search you would see more frequently fact checks, or the content that those fact checks try to correct. And basically we'll try to figure out how they are ranking, whether they're ranking higher or lower, and what's the competition. So that's our main question. And then we have a little bit more tiny questions surrounding it. So we also were interested in figuring out whether there is any particular type of content that we would see that it's outperforming. And at the same time, we were asking ourselves questions: how good optimized fact-checking websites are, and when it comes to their competitors, so how well optimized are the sites that they try to fact-check. So that's our research questions. And we started off from a data collection process, and that was made available to one of our partners. We obtained a sample of 500 URLs that were flagged by fact checkers that work with Meta. So those those URLs were flagged by fact checkers on Facebook, and each of those links had an engagement, or they've been shared more than 100 times, which means that they're quite prominent on Facebook. So you would think that maybe possibly they're also quite visible in Google. Which brings me to this next stage, in which we needed to figure out if those URLs that we got from that collections from Meta is actually viable for ranking in Google search results. And we did that by checking their indexability. So we ran it through a tool that is called Screaming Frog, whether to check if those URLs are correct in technical terms, and Google will be happy to basically to rank them. So we did that, and that of course slimmed down our initial data set. And then we also discarded, unfortunately we had to discard all of the results that were not in English, so we only focused on the content in English, because the next step was a query design step, and for us it was just more viable to do it in English. So we had our initial sample, and then we selected, we classify all of the URLs into the topics, and just by reading the article titles and the first paragraphs, we were able to classify them by such, and that led us to basically 5 groups of URLs that were COVID, climate, US liberals, US elections, and Ukraine. And based on all of this topic, within all of these topics, we then started working on trying to reverse engineering these articles and create a long list of search queries that we'll be then using for querying Google SERP. So that's what we did. We ended up with a list of 500 queries, and we scraped Google to get these results. And then once we had these results, the next step was, of course, to figure out which ones were the fact checks and which ones were the ones that fact checking were trying the stories that fact checkers were trying to correct. So that was the process. That was the next labeling step that we needed to do. And the third category was everything else. So basically, we also here to explain that we were just focusing on these 2 types of content. So the stories, the fact checking we're trying to correct, and the fact checks. We managed to scrape Google SERP results using something called Value SERP API, and a bit of code that we had to design for it. And then the next step was, of course, to try to figure out how well optimized the results are within our new data set. And we did it by using SEO Site Checkup. So that's a tool that basically analyzes domains versus a long list of different metrics, and then based on that, it gives you a score. The benchmark for the US was 78, so everything below 78, it was condemned, or was assumed to be less optimized, sorry. And that leads me now to this final results for our work. So on average, we could see that there was actually a positive finding that on average, the fact-checking content and debunks, they tend to achieve much higher rankings than the stories that they're trying to correct. That was 4.6 versus 6.1 on average. And they also tend to be slightly more better optimized. So you can see here if this is the optimization score, and that goes up to 78. And this is the ranking score, so you can see that most of this green dots, which represents the fact checks, they're actually slightly better optimized than other topics. And then, so that was one positive finding, and the other one was also interesting, that we could also tell that Google was intentionally trying to downgrade certain topics. So for example, for Ukraine, we've seen that although the topics or the articles that were trying to promote certain quite controversial stories, they were on average better optimized, then Google still tried to show more of the factual content related to the war in Ukraine. So here you can see that, for example, the websites from the TASS organization, so that's the Russian news organizations, although they were showing up in Google, they were usually showing up further down in Google SERP rather than the factual stories. So that's another big finding. So the last finding that is interesting is the one about the US elections. So we found that on average the content that was trying to dispute the problematic content related to US elections was ranking much lower than all the stories that were actually trying to in some way undermine the credibility of a US voting system. And that is mostly because we saw that there was a lot of campaign websites that were ranking much higher than the websites of the fact checkers who were in direct dispute and was trying to correct the narratives presented by those campaign sites. So
excellent. Thank you.